talking, and the speakers have been talking to each other over the last month and a half, and it's been quite an exciting conversation going on. I would like to take a 1-minute break and rearrange ourselves because we have had more people than we thought. People don't register. Please next time register so I know how many people are coming. This is now I would like to request Javed Chaudry Saab with his unique style and unique way of presentation to come and take the podium.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will try and answer this proposition because there is a question in this proposition. It says Caliphate as a political system, historical myth or future reality. We know it's not an historical myth. We know there were many caliphates. In fact, there is one just popped out of nowhere just a month or so ago, a couple of months ago. So there were caliphates. The first part of the question is very easy to answer. For the second part, I'll just give you a short presentation, and this presentation will include a discussion of the caliphate starting from about 7th century, going right up to 20th century. And this journey of 1300 years will traverse in about 5, maybe 8 or 10 minutes. And I will discuss the few significant caliphates the Muslims had in these 1300 years. So let's start with that. I try to start from the definition, the nomenclature, because I understand, if we understand the definitions, we understand at least half the business. And the definition of caliph, first of all, is the successor of Prophet Muhammad. Nothing else. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's the definition. And we'll have to live with that definition. Anything that falls out of that definition is not a true caliph. The caliphate, of course, is the domain of the caliph, is the area that he looks after. Dynasty, we should know, all of us should know, we have seen many dynasties in Indian subcontinent. Most of us come from there. One well-known dynasty started in 1526, went up to 1857, and then there was a lull for about 90 years, and another dynasty in terms of Pakistan started from 1947, and we have those dynasties going. So we know the dynasty. Empire, we know. That is very simple. There are empires all over. There used to be empires, British Empire, the Roman Empire. And these days, the American Empire. The only difference between American Empire and the British or Roman empires were that they actually owned or captured the territory. But American Empire does not capture the territory, does not own the territory. We might discuss that a little later. The first Islamic caliphate actually took place right after Prophet Muhammad passed away. And Abu Bakr was the first Khalifa. Right at that time, the problem started taking place because there are many people who did not want Abu Bakr to be the first Khalifa. They wanted Ali to be first Khalifa. And the reason they thought was because he is very closely related. He is the only one that closely related, being cousin and his son-in-law. But one way or the other, he was not chosen, he was not nominated, he was not elected to be the first Khalifa, and then the second and third, and then he became the fourth Khalifa. And some kind of split did take place right during those years. And that's the only time, actually, according to the definition, we had the true Caliphate or Caliphate. And after that, for another 12 and a half years, 12 and a half centuries, different people claimed to be Khalifas, but they were just Khalifas in name, not Khalifa according to the Islamic tradition or Islamic definition, or acceptance according to the Islamic laws. During the second and third Caliphate, they had lots of areas, they captured lots of people, became Muslims, and Islamic empire just kept on rising in size. And as the empire started becoming bigger and bigger with time, there has been so much disagreements among the rulers, the Khalifas, their friends, and their tribes, and their families. Soon, after about 100 years or so, Abbasids took over the Umayyads, and they set up their new empire, or what they call Caliphate, in Baghdad. They replaced the Umayyad, who had their capital in Damascus, and this new empire from the Abbasids was started in 750 CE. All the years I'm going to mention will be in terms of CE, not in Hijrah. Now, they worked, this empire worked very well for several centuries until they were destroyed by Mongols in 1285. It's a sad thing. They had beautiful legacies that they left behind, as we'll see a little bit later on. They worked in scientific areas, mathematics, in chemistry, physics, in medicine, but they probably became very complacent during all those centuries. They did not have armies to defend them when they were attacked by the Mongols in 1258. So that Abbasid Caliphate disappeared in 1258. Round about the same time, in the early days of Abbasid, in 714, Tariq bin Ziyad, with 12,000 soldiers, attacked Spain and captured it, and they set up another Muslim caliphate, or I would say empire, in that area. And they also left lots of legacies, a beautiful history of the scientific, the philosophical work, and so many other things they left behind, which was later on used by the Europeans, and their work became the foundation for the modern Europe. They ruled Spain from 714 to 1492, but the golden era is supposed to be the middle couple of centuries, 9 to 11. The first 100 or 150 years was just chaos and confusion. And toward the end, the last 100 years was the same. And they could not manage their own tribes, their own people. Some of them became hostile to the Muslim empire, and they took side with the Christians, and the Christians for a long time have been eyeing to remove the Muslims from Spain. And in 1492, eventually they were all removed, and they were given the choice either to become Christian or just leave the area and go away. And of course, many of them were murdered. The other significant empire or caliphate would be Ottoman Empire. Muslims usually call it Osmani Caliphate or Caliphate Osmania, but in the West, usually that empire is known as the Ottoman Empire. That existed from early in 14th century up to the end of the First World War. That is around 1920, 1919, and officially they were abolished by Mustafa Kemal in 1924, so their date is usually given officially 1990 to 1924. Now this particular empire, it was one of the biggest Muslim empire. It was spanned over 3 continents, and they had the best example set up for the world for peace, tolerance between various religions and sects, creeds and nations. And their decline started around 1800s. They, as usual, like all the other empires and their managers, they became complacent and became incompetent to run the business, the affairs of the caliphate, affairs of the empire. That was a time when Europeans had the Renaissance, and in this empire, they were still trying to live with the old values. They could not or did not keep up with the modern changes the rest of the world was going through. And there was another disadvantage they had as compared with, say, Spain or Britain or many other Western European countries. During that time, those Western European countries had extra help coming from the New World. That is, the Americas they had discovered, and lots of gold and silver was coming, which came handy for the development of those few countries in the West. That the Ottoman Empire, under those circumstances, Ottoman Empire could not compete with them. And corruption and nationalism was another problem. Nationalism is always a problem when you try to rule or make just one law for so many people spread all over the world, all over different continents. They have different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, and eventually it becomes a little big problem, and it did become a big problem. For example, Arabs did not want to be in this Ottoman Empire, which was basically Turkish Empire. Now, the Muslim contribution to civilization. Here, I'm referring to basically the contributions made by the Abbasids and the contribution made by the Muslims in Spain, also called Al-Andalus. And they made lots of development in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, philosophy, literature, physics, chemistry, and there were great names, of course. Al-Khwarizmi, he was a mathematician. He's the one who introduced the world with algebra. and trigonometry and spherical geometry. Ibn Khaldun, Dr. Qadi has also mentioned about Ibn Khaldun, Averroes, and Al-Ghazali, Al-Kindi. Basically, these Muslims of those eras, it's gone? No. They basically translated the Greek literature, the Greek philosophy and mathematics and in science. And they added their own work. They also received some mathematical information from India, and it is at that time actually the world started to know about zero, because zero, which we take for granted today, and everyone knows what zero is, but until about 8th or 9th century, the world at large did not know anything about zero. This information basically came from India, and then it was used in algebra and other branches of mathematics that Al-Khwarizmi worked on. These people added additional characteristics to zero that original Indian author did not have, but there was one particular characteristic of zero, that is, what happens if you divide a number by zero. Everybody up to that point got it wrong. Eventually, it was corrected by Newton in England and Leibniz in Germany around 16th, 17th century. As I mentioned, Al-Khwarizmi, whatever mathematical things that he came up with, including the definition and the application of zero, it was translated by an Italian Fibonacci, and he sent it to the Western scientists and philosophers. In optics, Ibn al-Haytham worked, and that information became the foundation of the optics and physics by the Western countries. There has been, I just made a note there has been a documentary program, many hours long, on PBS about the contribution the Muslims made during those centuries. Another thing, a beautiful philosophical paper came out from Al-Andalus, from Muslim Spain, that was called Kalam, Cosmological Argument for Existence of God. It's really worth reading, especially knowing that it came out of 11th and 12th century, and it is still available. And if you go to, I can give you, I don't remember all the references, but I have the notes made somewhere. I can give you some kind of references where to find those papers. Now, quickly, why Muslims' contributions are not well known? Well, first of all, the most important thing is you have to have a continuity. If you have invented something, you have come up with a new idea, you have something new to share with the world, you have to have an organizational continuity, and if somebody comes and stops you doing this and you disappear from the face of earth, then there is nobody who is going to recognize and acknowledge what you did. For example, the opposites were finished just almost overnight in 1258. So there is nobody to remember all the details, but we have just a little bit, whatever we have in the historical books left behind to tell us that they worked on certain things. Another thing is, I think Muslim communities, wherever they are and wherever they have lived in the past, they are still waiting for their renaissance. Renaissance is something just turning the light on. That came to Europe, especially the Western Europe, during 15th to 17th century. I think Muslims still don't have that. Colonization of most Muslims.
Yeah, it's 3:30, so we have to...
Colonization of most Muslim countries is another thing, another reason that Muslims could not grow as well as many Western European countries. Despotic rules, well, we are all very familiar with that. That's another reason. Is Caliphate a future reality? No, I don't think so. Because any bigger empire has many cultures and nations and nationalities in it, and it's very difficult to satisfy them. Especially talking about Caliphate, if it is related to religion, and it can be a reality only in future if you have each and every person of that society that belongs to the same religion exactly in all details to the same sect. If there are people, say Muslims, and they have so many sects within Muslims, you cannot have Caliphate, you cannot have Islamic Republic, you will have to have a secular republic. Since I don't have much time, I'll just go through. So my answer to Caliphate today would be akin to employing steam to power the modern transport system. There's a new Caliphate. Let's quickly talk about that. Maybe rather than making too many statements, I just have some questions. They're basically, I believe, bunch of mercenaries. They have gone haywire and they have declared a caliphate. Have they really declared caliphate, or they were instructed to declare a caliphate for some other reasons? That's a question I'll leave with you. US has plenty to do about those mercenaries to upset the system in Damascus. We know that they have been busy for the last couple of years, and it's basically the same people funded by Saudi Arabia. All these bad things are usually designed by CIA and funded by Saudi. What exactly are they up to? Well, time will tell, but probably you can figure out. And about breaking Iraq into three portions, one for Sunnis, one for Shias, and the northern portion for Kurds. That talk has been there since 2003. Maybe this is one way they can get it done if people wanted it done, if somebody wanted to get it done. As far as their rhetorical statement to include 1.5 billion Muslims under one flag, one banner of Caliphate, I personally do not see that happening. It's just a statement and nothing more than that. In the end, I would like to leave you with this quote from Toynbee. Of the 22 civilizations that have appeared in history, 19 of them collapsed. When they reached the moral state, the United States is in now. The reason I included this in my presentation, because the previous slide was about ISIS, and that was started by the US. And US has started many similar things since 9/11. So I thought these two things probably go together. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Javed Saab. That was very informative. And we will have some abstract conversation and we will have some real talk on the street conversation. So what Javed Saab has just told us, people are talking about these things, they are discussing these things, and I would welcome the rest of the speakers to address these points in their own presentation. Thank you, Javed Saab, very much. That was very informative, especially the recap of history.